What's going on, everybody? Thank you so very much for joining me here on another episode of Sports Talk. Today we're going to be going over my recap for all the games of NFL season Week 8, going over my predictions for the upcoming games for Week 9. I'll give you guys my thoughts on the possibility of a Ben Simmons-James Harden trade between the Philadelphia 76ers and Houston Rockets, what I think about the NBA starting the next season on December 22nd, and why I think it's too soon. We're going to get into all that, guys, but to kind of start things off, with Week 8, Atlanta, Carolina. Hey, Atlanta finally got another win. I know I already kind of touched on that in the last episode, so I won't go too much into it, but at least Atlanta finally got another win since the Dan Quinn firing, so hopefully this will be a step in the right direction for them. And Carolina's not really going to go anywhere, but like I said before, they're going to be one of those teams that will take their pound of flesh. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. It was the somewhat defensive thrill ride that we expected. Not quite the way we expected it to go, but nonetheless. I think what really hurt Baltimore in the end is Lamar Jackson and his 4 turnovers. And for a lot of people, this will just further drive home the notion that Lamar Jackson cannot perform in big games under pressure. But hopefully in the coming season, he'll be able to turn that notion around. And, the Steelers look like they're the best team in the league. Their defense came up with key turnovers. They got the key 4th down stuff when they needed to. And Big Ben's not turning the ball over or putting the ball in harm's way, which is always good. So right now, I think the biggest threat to Kansas City is the reigning champions, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And right now, if the playoffs were to start today, the playoffs would go through Pittsburgh. And I'm very curious to see what Pat Mahomes and company would perform like against this kind of defense, but hopefully we'll see that in the future. Rams, Dolphins. Obviously, this was a big game to you guys because this was the first start for Tua. And I was a little bit skeptical that this was going to be his first start because for a rookie quarterback to have to go up against a Rams defense that's better than I think people gave it credit for. You obviously you got the monster in the middle of Aaron Donald and just wreaking havoc in the middle of that offensive line. And obviously in the first drive of the game that kind of paid dividends with Donald getting the strip sack. And it's like, hey, Tua, I'm Aaron. But I think after that, Tua he didn't really have to do a whole lot because the Dolphins defense really stepped up in this game. Created turnovers, you got the punt return touchdown. And so I think for a first start, this went as well as Tua could have asked for in certain ways. Because like I said, he didn't have to be asked to do a whole lot. But I definitely want to see in the future how he performs when he's asked to do more, when he's asked to drop back and like I said, do more with his arm. And especially when I want to see what he does with his legs. But I think this was a good first start for Tua. I think it was a sign of things to come for the Dolphins, hopefully, and we'll see if they can continue on that roll with Tua. Jets, Chiefs. Obviously, not really much to say here. The Chiefs did what just about every team's done so far to the Jets. That's why, obviously, 416 yards and 5 total touchdowns for Mahomes is, a usual Mahomes stat line, but I won't put too much stock into it considering the competition that was at hand. But the Chiefs are going to keep on rolling and the Jets are going to keep on tanking for Trevor. So hopefully this thing with the Jets works out for them in the end, because if not, then boy, did they waste an ugly season for nothing. Vikings, Packers. I obviously wasn't expecting the Vikings to win here, and I know most people are going to probably make this case, so I don't want to be one of the many. But I think the defense really kind of let them down in this game because nobody really expects Kirk Cousins to play big in these big primetime games. So really the one task that the Packers defense had was stopping Dalvin Cook, and for whatever the reason, they could not do that. And that's why the Vikings scored on their first 4 possessions. And somehow, but what I find kind of funny though is that despite the fact that the Vikings did not score again after that final 4th touchdown drive, is that Aaron and the offense couldn't capitalize on that. Which, it's kind of a two-way street, because on one hand, he never should have had to be in that position to begin with. But at the same time, all I ever hear from people is that Aaron Rodgers is a transitional talent. He's arguably the best thrower of the football this league's ever seen. And so I hold him to a really high standard, and I know that's probably not entirely fair to do of him, but when you're considered to be a transitional talent, like a once-in-a-lifetime talent, I hold to those standards, and I expect greatness from you no matter what the circumstances. And I'd feel the same way if it was a Pat Mahomes or a Tom Brady or a Russell Wilson, or if you're any one of those transitional top-tier quarterbacks. So hopefully going forward they can somewhat fix this. I know we were kind of hoping that Green Bay was going to make some kind of moves at the trade deadline, and they're staying packed, which is somewhat commendable, but also somewhat kind of foolish. But hopefully Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur can make this thing work as best as possible. I mean, obviously, these guys, their team isn't the most talented in the world, and they took a team to the NFC Championship game last year. So hopefully they can make something out of it. They get some guys coming back, and let's hopefully they can bounce back from this in a big way. Colts, Lions. I feel the same way about the Colts, guys, that I feel about the Panthers. You know, they're not like one of the top-tier playoff contenders, but they're a team that's going to kind of take something away from the top-tier teams. You know, they're one of those teams that you can't tread lightly on, especially with Darius Leonard coming back this week. I think that's definitely going to bolster their defense, and all you have to hope for on offense is that Phillip Rivers doesn't turn the ball over. The Lions are what the Lions are. You know, Matt Patricia's hardship way of coaching hasn't really proven to take off, and honestly, I would not be surprised if this was Patricia's last year in Detroit, but who knows? Maybe they'll turn this thing around in the second half of the season, but who knows? Raiders, Browns. Well, the Cleveland Browns ship, you know, rides again. A team that's supremely talented just continues to falter, and you actually kind of figured with it sounds kind of weird, but you figured with the loss of Odell that Baker would feel more prone to kind of spreading the ball around a bit and keeping the defense honest, but it seems like Baker Mayfield just isn't that guy. Just he's got arm talent. He's obviously got all the ability in the world, but he's one of the very few quarterbacks with that kind of talent that just can't seem to capitalize on his talent. And they got all the offensive pieces in place. You got the two-headed monster at back with Hunt and Chubb. You got Landry and Odell when Odell comes back, if Odell comes back. You got Austin Hooper with Njoku, because you got pieces there. And it's kind of sad that Baker seems to be the weak link of this defense. And I don't know, maybe after this season, maybe it's time for a quarterback change. I don't know. But hopefully Cleveland can turn this thing around and Baker can prove those doubters wrong. But the way things are looking right now, guys, I highly doubt it. And the Raiders are proving to be a better team than we first thought. Their defense is young and can only get better. Derek Carr is kind of working himself back into that 2016 type quarterback play that he once had. But I won't read too much into it just yet because, you know, the Browns are who the Browns are, and we'll see going down the line to see if the Raiders are who we think the Raiders usually are. Titans, Bengals, you know, this one kind of surprised me, guys, I'm not going to lie, because I figured coming off the tough loss at Pittsburgh that Tennessee would come out of this roaring. They would run the ball right down the Bengals' throats, and they started to do that, but then for whatever the reason, their defense couldn't stop the Bengals. And obviously we know what Joe Burrow represents, but at the same time, he is a rookie quarterback, and rookie quarterbacks should have a bit of a harder fare than what Joe Burrow did on Sunday. But hopefully, you know, the Titans can bounce back, because obviously, you know, I'll admit, guys, I was kind of wrong about Ryan Tannehill. I thought this would mainly be a team that would feature running the ball down people's throats with Derrick Henry, and then just kind of letting Ryan Tannehill make a few plays here and there. But he's proving me wrong. You know, he's proven to be, you know, the franchise quarterback that the Titans have wanted. But obviously, this is a bit of a setback because, let's be honest, Tennessee had no business losing a game like this. But no, this is the beauty about the NFL, is that anybody can beat anybody on a given Sunday. Patriots, Buffalo, you know, the woes of New England continues. And I think what makes this even more heartbreaking than any of the other losses so far this year is that this is a game that we were in position to win. You know, the Patriots defense held the Buffalo to that field goal after that key drop in the end zone, and it's like, oh, well, this is a good start. And then we started driving the ball right down Buffalo's throat with the run game. Cam was making things happen, and just when it looked like we were about to take this game, drive the ball right into the end zone, Cam fumbles, and it sucks because he hadn't turned the ball over at all during the whole game, and then he turns the ball over at the absolute worst time. So we'll just have to take this with a grain of salt, and hopefully we can take some positivities from this, that we're a hard team that will compete. It's a heartbreaker, guys, but hopefully we can take some more positive from this. And Buffalo, they should consider themselves very fortunate that this game went the way it did at the end, and hopefully they'll take from this that they can't take any team lightly, and they'll continue to grow as a young team. And we'll see what happens in the future. Chargers, Broncos, I feel like the Chargers are beginning to look like the AFC's version of the Atlanta Falcons. Once again, they held a huge lead, and Justin Herbert was continuing to play well, and then once again, he commits, the usual NFL rookie mistakes, and when he started throwing picks, he started letting Denver feel more confident. They started getting back into the game, and then to have to lose on the final play of the game is definitely a heartbreaker, somewhat like the New England Buffalo game. But also the Chargers have a lot to build on from that. It's just like the only thing the Chargers seem like they really have to build on, at least right now, is that, guys, once we get a huge lead, let's actually keep it. Because, honestly, Denver's just another team out there right now. They're gonna win a few games here and there, but they're not really a serious threat. Like I said, hopefully the Chargers can build off of this. They can say, hey, we have the talent. We've had these huge leads. Now it's just time for us to actually keep a lead. So hopefully they can start doing that finally. Saints, Bears. Nick Foles is looking like the old Nick Foles of old that couldn't be a starting quarterback. But then again, the Bears are in kind of a sticky situation right now. Because, do you go with Nick Foles? Do you go with Mitchell Trubisky? It almost feels like a no-win situation for them at quarterback. Because they have decent offensive talent. They obviously have a good defense to back that up, the other side of the ball. And because the Saints didn't really impress me overall that much in this game. They kind of took advantage of what the Bears were not doing. They took the opportunities that the Bears would not. But nothing about this game made me think that the Saints are any major threat. Obviously, this coming week against Tampa is going to prove to be a huge game for both teams. But judging off of this game, I feel very confident in the Bucs' chances against this team. We'll see. Niners, Seahawks. The injury woes continue to bite San Francisco in the ass, and it's really unfortunate. And I know San Francisco was really high on Jimmy being their quarterback for the future, but right now that's not really proving to be a proven commodity, at least not now. And as much as I don't want to say it, guys, I think this is probably going to be Garoppolo's last year in San Francisco, and they're going to start looking elsewhere. I definitely don't think this is the end of Jimmy Garoppolo's NFL career, but I think the experiment in San Francisco just hasn't working out. Just for whatever the reason, his style is not what San Francisco needs. They need to find a quarterback that's not going to be as prone to make mistakes, especially in the under pressure situations. So hopefully going forward, they can find what they're looking for at quarterback. And I think once this team gets healthy I think they might as well just kind of cancel out this season. The injury bugs have really bitten us in the aft end. We're obviously not anywhere near the contenders that we were a year ago. They need to just kind of pack it in, wait for everybody to get healthy for next season, and run it back, and we'll see a much different team come next season. And then Russell Wilson bounces back huge from a subpar game against the Cardinals, and hopefully all he has to do is just cut down the mistakes. And it sucks that Seattle didn't really go for anybody on the defensive side in the trade deadline. So they're just going to have to hope that Russell Wilson can continue to make his magic. But we'll see what happens with that. I hope for the best for Russell because, like I said, I think he's going to be the league MVP this year. And Seattle's going to be one of the 2 or 3 NFC teams that's going to be heavy Super Bowl contenders. And right now, Russell's going to be all that they have to make that magic happen. Eagles, Cowboys. Boy, I tell you what, guys. I've been watching NFL football for 20 years, 2 decades. This is probably arguably the worst division that I've seen in those 2 decades. And part of it is, again, like the injury bug really bit Dallas. Andy Dalton's out. Dak's going to be out till next season if he comes back to Dallas next year. And then the injury bug really bit the Eagles yet again. But damn, I had a really hard time watching this game the other night. And it really sucks that one of these 2 teams is going to be likely be the winner of this division. And that means whoever wins this division is going to get a home playoff game basically by default. But I genuinely believe that whoever they play in the first round, they're going to be one of the only division winners to lose a home playoff game. I don't even know what to say, guys. Carson Wentz just continues to look like the turnover-prone deer-in-headlights quarterback that we've seen him as the past year. I don't know how much better it's going to get for either one of these teams, but who knows? Bucks, Giants. I don't know what it is with Tom Brady and the New York Giants. It's like they know how to play him. They know how to play him. You just got to rough him up a bit. But I thought this was arguably the best game Tom's ever played against the Giants, considering which. And you guys can obviously debate with yourselves whether or not you thought that was pass interference. I'm honestly kind of split hairs on this because it kind of reminds me of the Malcolm Butler interception in Super Bowl 49, to where if you watch the replay at a slow pace, it obviously looks like it's really, really like a thin difference where it looks like he got there first before the ball did, but then at the same time, it's too close to call. So I'll obviously leave that up for debate. But, the Bucks win a tight game, and another beauty in the NFL is you never know what team is going to beat you week to week. You can't take any team lightly, and that's kind of what that Super Bowl 42 loss in 2007 taught me, is that you can't really take any team lightly. But I give the Giants credit for at least, hanging in there till the very end. Daniel Jones converting 2 big 4th downs to even drive them in position to get that touchdown and to get the 2-point conversion. And honestly, the Bucs should consider themselves, very fortunate that play went their way and that they weren't penalized, because if the Giants would have had a second crack at that 2-point conversion, who knows how it would have played out. I know that's kind of my thought, guys, on the Week 8 games. It was a lot of twists and turns. The injury bug continuing to rear its ugly head. But continuing on to Week 9, this is shaping up to be a very interesting week. You got a lot of intriguing matchups that I think will be a lot more important than people might realize. Starting off with tonight's Thursday night game, Green Bay, San Francisco. I think this is a no-brainer with Garoppolo out now. With all the injuries that have really bit the 49ers, I think Green Bay takes this one handily. Denver, Atlanta. Honestly, it's kind of funny that in back-to-back games, the Broncos are playing the 2 teams that tend to give up big leads. And I'm very tempted to pick Denver because of how this year has played out for Atlanta, but I'm gonna stick true and say Atlanta wins a nail biter, and hopefully the late lead woes don't continue to come back to haunt the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm gonna say Atlanta. Seattle, Buffalo. This is one of the most intriguing matchups of the season, I believe, because obviously Buffalo's defense is one of the top tier defenses in the league, and the offensive line for Seattle isn't very good at all. But if I had to pick right now, I'm gonna say Russell continues to work his Seattle magic, and I think Seattle escapes with a win. That's the key word there. I think they escape with a win, and they'll continue their race with Tampa and Green Bay for that number 1 seed in the NFC playoff seeding. Chicago, Tennessee. I think Tennessee bounces back with a huge win this week against a very good Chicago defense, and hopefully this will be a better defensive outing for Tennessee, because obviously Nick Foles, much as Trubisky, it doesn't matter which quarterback they throw their way. Baltimore, Indy. I think Baltimore bounces back from the loss against Pittsburgh in a big way. I think even with the addition of Darius Leonard, I don't know how much of a dividend it's going to play for Indy's defense. And I think Baltimore's defense is going to capitalize on what usually can be a very turnover-prone Phillip Rivers. And I say Baltimore bounces back with a huge win. Carolina, Kansas City, I think Kansas City rolls on. They're going to roll on as the defending champions, and the question will continue to be week to week, who's going to knock the Chiefs off the top of the mountain since they're the defending champs. Minnesota, Detroit. This is kind of one of those games that you could toss a coin in the air, because really either one of these teams you don't really look at as a serious contender. Each team has their baggage, and I'm going to say right now, guys, I'll say Minnesota. Minnesota will continue off that win last week against Green Bay. And I think Matt Patricia's days as the head coach of the Detroit Lions is severely numbered. Giants, Washington. Another game you could basically toss a coin in the air. You could pick whichever side, and you don't really feel confident with either side that you're picking. And I'm gonna say the Giants win a close one, and they're gonna sweep the season series against Washington, and Washington should just start building towards next season, I guess. No. Houston, Jacksonville. I hope Houston hopefully starts bouncing back, and I know it's kind of a long shot, but I hope this can kind of catapult Houston towards a possible wild card spot, although that looks kind of like a long shot at this point. But I'm going to say Houston wins, and hopefully, Deshaun Watson can hopefully salvage this season in some form or fashion. Raiders, Chargers. I'm going to say the Chargers finally cut a lock. I think the Raiders are going to be, hopefully, they're going to be one of those times where a team's going to come off of a huge win against a formidable AFC opponent. They're going to kind of feel themselves a little bit too much, and it's going to cost them in the end. So I'm going to say Chargers. Pittsburgh, Dallas. I don't think this is much competition at all. I think Pittsburgh is going to pick the bones of what's left of that Dallas offense, and Pittsburgh is going to continue their perfect season as of now. Miami, Arizona. I'm going to say Arizona wins. This will be Tua's first loss as an NFL starter. It is going to be a very intriguing matchup with Tua and Kyler. New Orleans, Tampa. I think this is going to be one of the most important games of the week. Maybe one of the most important games of the year, because despite what I might feel about New Orleans and the type of team that they are right now, they are just one game back of Tampa. And obviously they would own the tiebreaker over Tampa. So I think this game might be slightly more important for Tampa than it would be for New Orleans. But I'm going to say Tampa wins, because I think both teams are very different from that week one game. I think the pass rush and that defense is going to get after Drew Brees, and I think the offense for Tampa is going to continue to pick that defense apart with every possession. I'm going to say Tampa wins fairly handily, just because I don't think New Orleans is the same team. Patriots, Jets, I'm going to say the Patriots win by default, just because I think the Jets have basically kind of just wash their hands of the season. It's like, let's just hope we can get Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 overall pick and go from there. So that's really my thoughts, guys, on Week 9. It's definitely shaping up to be one of the most important weeks of the season for sure. And I'm definitely interested to see where that goes from here. And to give you my thoughts, guys, on there's a thing going around about a possible trade between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Houston Rockets regarding, Ben Simmons and James Harden. I'm a little bit torn on this, guys, because obviously James Harden is a once in a lifetime trend. What's the word here? He's a once in a lifetime offensive talent, and I think Houston would be foolish to kind of let him go and expect Ben Simmons to be the central piece. But obviously, if you're Philadelphia, I think, honestly, James Harden is the better player to have. Although you kind of really have to ask yourselves how is James Harden going to really fit with a talent like Joel Embiid? Because obviously one of the big pieces of James Harden's offensive game is priding himself on getting to the line, attacking the rim and getting to the foul line to shoot 10, 12 free throws a game. And that's going to be very difficult to do when you have a big body like Joel Embiid clogging the lane. But I think there's ways they could really work around that. Because if you look back at the last 5-6 years of James Harden's career, he's been at least 8 to 9 assist a game guys. So I think, would he be willing to sacrifice scoring 35 points a game and cutting that down by 5 or 6 points and averaging 9-10 assists? Yeah. And I definitely would be intrigued to see what a pairing of James Harden and Joel Embiid would look like. But then again, are you going to want to pair Ben Simmons with a guy like Russell Westbrook? No. So I think if they somehow make this trade happen, then as much as it's going to suck, you're going to have to cut ties with Russell Westbrook and that big contract of his, and then look to kind of building some pieces around Ben Simmons. Kind of make him, for what it's worth, the LeBron of Houston. Put a bunch of three-point shooters around him. Let him hopefully further develop his game. And honestly, it sounds like a trade that they could really make work. It's just a matter of if and when. But if I was Philadelphia, I would do it. If I was Houston, I wouldn't, because I don't want to risk losing James Harden and not knowing whether or not Ben Simmons is going to actually develop his offensive game. I'll definitely be keeping tabs on that for sure. So, and the kind of final piece is, I know the NBA wants to start the season on December 22nd to hopefully kind of make up for lost revenue during the bubble. And obviously, Adam Silver wants to start having games in the NBA arenas again, and they really don't want to have to resort to doing the bubble again. But with the way things are being shut down again, that's what's looking most likely. And I know they want to start as soon as possible, but considering we just had the NBA Finals end not even a month ago in October, I don't think that's a very wise choice for them to make. If I was the NBA right now, I would look to starting on MLK Day, start in the middle of January, give your players a little bit more of a rest, let them have the holiday season with their families, and then once the holiday season's over, we can start gearing towards the start of the NBA season, and I think that's something that the players will be a lot more for. Because I know LeBron James has stated that if the NBA season does start December 22nd, he's most likely going to sit the first month of the season. And I know the NBA definitely doesn't want their biggest star resting, because that'll obviously hurt their television viewings. So honestly, if I was them, I'd start in the middle of January. Don't start in December and not give the players the rest that they deserve. Let them enjoy the holiday season with their families and start the NBA season up in January, and you'll have all your stars ready to go, and you won't take the risk of some of your biggest stars sitting and obviously hurting your television revenue. So that's really my thought on that, guys. So that's really what I have for you guys today. Thank you so very much for listening. Continue to hit that like, share, and subscribe. Share this, any social media platform you can. Let's get the word out. Let's get this channel up and going. Let's get the subscribers up. And because I don't know. This is something that I've always really wanted to do. But obviously, your guys' support would definitely mean a whole lot in that regard. And I'd like to think that I'm providing a different kind of content than what you guys are used to. So let's continue to get this channel up and going, and let's get the word out there, guys. Come on. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I will definitely see you guys next time.